CU for my bachelor's and master's, and NYU for my doctorate, and I have been teaching in the classroom. This is my 41st year. So I have to tell you that I love what I do. When I first started teaching, I was in debate, forensics, and drama. I don't know how I did that. It would be impossible today to do that. But at that time, I was much younger and lots of energy, and it was a great experience to be able to do all of that. So now, I just am lucky enough to teach drama and forensics, and it gives me great joy to do that. One thing that I just thought I would share a couple of things with you today, because apparently this was a different workshop and it got canceled, and I found out I was doing it at 9:30 last night. So I put something together that I was hopeful would be beneficial to us and our discussions about forensics and about what we do as artists. And I found this poster, which I love. Art has the role in education and helping children become like themselves instead of more like everybody else. I love that. I just love that. It is just a great, great poster, and I have that in my room. I show that a lot. I tend to find inspirational videos, short clips of those, like the Patsy Rodenberg one that I showed to you last session, like the Chinese dancers one that I showed to you last session, because I really feel like those kids need to see themselves as limitless, not limited. And too often, even in Blue Valley North, where a lot of people have the impression that everybody's rich and that everybody is smart, and I'm there to tell you that this is not the case. This is not the case. When we opened the school, when Hallbrook was the only subdivision, then everybody was rich, because that's where they lived. And that's all that was built up around there at that time. But demographics have changed, and that is not the way we are anymore. So it doesn't matter who walks into my classroom. All of you know that. Doesn't matter who walks in. I just love kids, and I try and take them right from where they are. And so I thought today I would tell you and talk to you a little bit about forensics in giving something a little different than I presented last time, that might be a little bit more beneficial to you. Having coached it for every year of my life, I've learned a lot, and this is certainly not just exclusive to me. It's not something I invented. It comes from the fact that I've gone to nationals a lot of years and watched and listened and learned from the best. You're going to hear Pam Wyckoff talk, and she's a brilliant person, along with her husband Joe. They're great people. I've certainly been on committees and judged with both of them, and they're excellent people that will give you great ideas as well. And but from my perspective, which is all I can really give you, I just like to talk to you a little bit about what it is I do, and why I love what I do, and how I do what I do a little bit. It is a requirement for me, because I'm the only drama teacher in our district that also coaches forensics. And that tends to be, makes all the difference, I think, in the kinds of kids that you get in your program. Because a lot of times drama teachers will see forensics as a competitive, like theater's not, but they they will think that their kids are their kids and that I'm stealing them. So I just thought, hell with that, I'm going to coach it myself and do both. And I required that my top level kids, my rep classes, of which I have 2 rep classes this year, I have a huge amount of kids in those classes. I require them to do it. And they have to do 2 memorized events. And they have to, we start picking the material, we're picking material right now, actually. One thing that they have to do for the state drama conference every year, which is in January, is they have to perform individual events. And those of you who are thespians know what I'm talking about, but for those of you who do not, individual events are kind of like mini forensics in Lincoln, Nebraska, but they're also at the state conferences. And they are inclusive of basically a lot of the events that are forensics events too. They do monologues and duet acting scenes, but they also do solo musical, group musical, duet musical. They also do some other things that are forensics based, but not as long as. Most of the IEs for thespians are 5 minutes or less, whereas of course forensics are 10 minutes. But I will tell you that Harold Clurman, great director, in his book on directing, page 49, I believe, says, I just happen to remember that. Why did I remember that? But anyway, he says that 95% of a play's success is in the casting of that play. So I'd like to talk to you about that in just a second. One thing, I don't know if I'm really a good teacher. I enjoy what I do. I think I have good days and bad days, like all of us. But one thing I think I really do the best, 2 things I do. I think I really cast my plays well, because I really think about it and I know it. And when I put it up, I'm absolutely sure I made the right decision. And another thing I think I'm good at is putting kids and opportunities together, which I think for a theater teacher, forensics coach, helping kids get into college, finding scholarships, getting them in the right college, helping them write the letters and getting them there. I think that's all very important. So those 2 things I think I do better than anything else that I do, really, quite frankly. But casting, Harold Clurman says 95% of a play's success, and I would venture and posit to you that that's true about kids' forensic scenes. Doesn't matter what scene. In fact, it's true of oratory selection as well. I've coached oratory for years, and I love it. I love it. So it's finding the right topic for the right kid in that sense, isn't it? And Jamel Brown last year did a really nice workshop. I don't know if you were here last year and caught her workshop, but she is a great coach, successful Millikan Award winner teacher there, and she interviews all of her kids one at a time and does an interest inventory on them. And it's very detailed, and she usually does it before the school year, does it at the end of the school year, maybe during the summer, meets with them, and finds out, their interests, their likes, their dislikes, just a very thorough interview, and this helps her then to, as she said, to really start to push material in the direction of the kid. And so I think that's what she was speaking about, because one thing I do is I don't read a whole lot of books, but I read 2 or 3 plays a day. Now, they're not Eugene O'Neill and Shakespeare, but that would be only 1 a day. But most plays, I can get through a play during my planning period. And I'm always reading plays. I have about 10 or 20 plays stacked on my nightstand. And I read all the time, because I'm always looking for new material. And when you have a forensic squad of 100 kids, and, maybe 20 or so, 20 plus of them are doing speech events, the others are all required to do 2 memorized dramatic events. And that is material suck big time. And I have a huge play library of plays that have been bought for me by my parents' support group. And I send them off to the rebinding thing every year to have them rebounds because they last longer. And I have a checkout system, and I also have a parent permission form that they have to sign, and the parents have to sign, that lets them know that there are adult themes in plays, and they don't get to censor what everybody else reads, but they can censor what their own kids read.
Do you have that?
I do. It's in the packet. It's in the folder you get. I do have that there. And I make them sign it, and then that is a covenant between the parent and the kid and me. And I make, them show me. They come out and they have to show me. And there are times I go, no, you're not reading that. That's not here. No. It's too adult. No. Something. No.
Have you read every play you have in your library?
Yes, I have.
Do you do all the cuttings for them? Or
I do not.
You make them?
I do not. I do have cuttings that I have in a file that I have made that I really like of certain material. And so, like if I have 2 kids that come across I go, you 2 boys could do this scene. Dominic and Eugene, that's who you are. So I have them read it and go, yeah, you're Dominic, you're Eugene. Move on. Next. And then they go read it. I have the whole screenplay. They have to read the whole screenplay. They have to watch the movie. Then I block the scene. In fact, I already have it blocked. It's on the notes. And I block the scene. And they were in finals anyway, last year. So sometimes that happens. It doesn't happen a whole lot, but sometimes it does. I have a great cutting from Ralph Ellison's Juneteenth that I use. Great cutting. That's from the book. And I have loved that book, that cutting for a long time. It's been to nationals a couple of times, but not a lot of people have that book or that cutting. And I really like it. I have several different cuttings from one of my favorite plays, The Shadow Box, that I use, that really speak to me. And I know exactly how they're supposed to be and exactly how I want it, because I've known that play for a long time. And so there are certain plays that I have an affinity for, yeah. But I generally like to try and push them towards new material if I can. The problem with that, as you undoubtedly know, is that new material is really iffy in the content area. And by content, I don't mean necessarily that it has vulgar language, although some of it does. But some of the writing is just not very good. And so you're sitting there going, okay, is there even 10 minutes here that is good? That if you put it to, so so there is that. You do have to, and that's what you know when I read anyway. I just have a bunch of post-it notes and I go, scene, I just mark all the scenes that are possibilities as I'm reading. And then I Xerox them and digitize them and put them in my computer. Male, and I'll mark it male, female, male, genderless. Sometimes they're genderless, doesn't matter. And then I keep them that way. I have a big filing cabinet too of scenes, and I filter those in and out based on what's out for the season. If there's a lot of Dominic and Eugene's, then we don't do that. There's a lot of, the Belle of Amherst, which God knows there were years ago, we don't do that. I pull scenes all the time, and, people get tired of hearing the same old crap every year, so. But, so I'm always looking for new material, and the thing that I love to do that's profited for the kids is that I bring to the table a lot of new material, plus I have a supporting booster club that buys the plays. Plays are expensive, and I have a principal that will hard bind them, and then it's about the casting. And I spend a great deal of time knowing who my kids are, really understanding them, which is similar to what Jamel does, but I don't sit them down and do the interest inventory. I kind of just know them and know their type, and I can pretty much cast it to type. I just finished casting The Member of the Wedding, Carson McCullers, beautiful play that a couple of years ago I wouldn't have had the kids to do, but I do now. And it was just, and they just came across my field of vision. I go, I can do that play, And it's kind of this great moment when you go. And then I had the right people. I went through my list of all the kids that auditioned for the musical last year, and I go, I am going to do Big Fish. I've got all the kids for these parts. It just comes to me. And the reason it comes to me is because I go see a lot of them in places in New York, and I read a lot. And I have a friend who I'm about to say something naughty. He videotapes Broadway shows. He videotapes all of them. And he sends them to me. So I have every Broadway show I ever want. The original cast members. And I keep them in a big file at home. And so that's very helpful too. Because sometimes I'll look at a play and I'll go, I need to see the original. And these are plays as well as musicals. And it's nice to go back, pop in the DVD and go, there's the scene I'm looking for. That, and then you see the professional actors playing it and you go, that's like Jim in my 4th hour class. You can do that part. He's about ready to do that part. Because I like to put them in plays and in scene work that's just about that far out of their reach. So they have to grow into it. And so finding the material is the toughest part, but the most fun part for me because I get to read a lot. And I also, at the end of the year, in the last vestiges of May, after state forensics is over, that's what kids do too, is they help me comb through all the new catalogs of plays and all of the bestseller lists of New York Times bestseller lists of books that are of interest to them. And then they all take a vote, and I'll order the top 10 off of Amazon where I can get them the cheapest. And I will order them and have them come in over the summer. And they could be books that not just specifically for a DI or an HI or a duet or a duo, but they are also ideas for oratories or informatives too as well. So the material selection and then the casting. Casting, I guess, would be similar in a duo scene would be similar to what you debate coaches do when you do your pairings, I suppose. and it's sometimes just as intense and can get just as ugly, I would suppose. The short time that I was a debate coach, certainly not very good at it, but the parenting thing was always the thing that scared me the most, that I knew most parents would complain. So, not that they haven't complained about casting, because I missed their darling daughter, who's going to be the next Barbra Streisand, you know? Yeah, right. All right, so, anyway, I hope she is, I hope you are, but I don't see it yet. Anyway, the material is key, and I probably throw out of use 30% of what I've ordered. Because after I read it, I go, no, this just is not good enough. Because ultimately, the people that are gonna be adjudicating the kids are probably gonna be 40s, 50s, 60s, right? Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, age range. And we have to find interests that are key to them. And that's why we look on the bestseller lists, because I figure that's going to be certainly an indicator. And then I try and find topics that are going to be challenging socially. And I have found, certainly PlayScripts is .com, .inc, or whatever they are. They are very prolific in getting new playwrights and plays out immediately. They're not all, but quite frankly, they're not always the best plays. Some of them have a few good moments in them, but some of them are just stupid.
Yeah.
And, the nice thing is you can read a bunch of it before you order it, which is nice of them, so you don't have to waste your money. But I tend to have now used a lot of plays that I get on youthplays.com. I don't know if you know that site. It's run by Jonathan Dorff, the playwright, who did workshops at our thespian conference last year. He's a friend of mine. And we're doing one of his plays called The Locker Next to Mine. And I would recommend it if you're looking for a play to do, for a social issues play for thespians. The Locker Next to Mine is a really quite a good script. And we're doing that in October. And there's lots of social issue plays. He's very particular about the writing. He's a really good writer, I think, for the high school age group, and prolific.
What's that author's name again?
Dorff, Jonathan Dorff, Jonathan Jonathan Dorff, D-O-R-F.
What's the theme of the Locker Next to?
It's bullying. But there's new twists on it, so, which I like. Because, we did the bully plays, there were lots of ones you can't do in that bundle of plays, but there are ones that you can as well. But he's done Rumors of Polar Bears, and he's just done some great work that, if you have not looked at any of his plays, I'd say give them a gander. I think they're worth doing for scene work in class, and I think there are great scenes that can be pulled for forensics that have not yet been used out of the circuit very much. And I heartily recommend you kind of getting in touch with his work. They've made some updates to their website. They were trying to make it more like PlayScripts, where you could read sections of the plays prior to order. I don't know that they've done that yet. Last time I was on, which was last week, they had not yet done that. But then I saw on Facebook where he said they just made a major upgrade to their website, so that may have happened yet. I just haven't been there to look, quite frankly. But it's the link is really easy to find and easy to use, and I would recommend it. So, meeting kids where they're at, they don't often make the best choices about who their duet or duo partner should be. And as you have known, if your classrooms do not, you know, if they had a winning duet last year, they want to have a winning duet this year. And sometimes that will work, and sometimes it just won't. It definitely won't if they can't go out the same weekends. You know, forensic season comparatively is thankfully shorter than debate. 11, 12 weeks, and you're done, really. And truth be told, we're starting the playoffs, as they say, in March for forensics. It just seems like we're getting faster and faster at the end, sooner and sooner. So I feel like I have less and less time to get kids ready. I don't know if you all feel that way, but I've got that kind of rush.
I thought the adjustment from Missouri to here has been horrible.
Yeah.
It's so fast, and especially like for oratory and those things that we would take, 10 weeks to really develop. You don't have that here, I just
Yeah.
thought, how do you get them ready so quick?
Well, the ones that I know are going to do oration, we've already pretty much decided what the topic's going to be. So then it's like, I find a TED Talk, or I find a book, or a YouTube video, and I go, and I send the kid the links, then I meet with the kid, we talk about what, I will just use my own student last year who was in oration, Clayton Covington, great kid, debater, love him. And we found his topic after I finished reading Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and it's about vulnerability. And I would tell you that if you've never read that book, it would be worth your time to read it. It is indeed a self-help book. You can see what she's about by watching her TED Talk that went viral. And she's been on Oprah a couple times, and stuff like that, if you're an Oprah fan. But basically, what I'm not a therapist. Don't try to be with my kids. That's not my job. However, what the points that she makes about vulnerability are wise for you to take heed. Because kids, when you're rehearsing them in DI specifically, and duet and duo, they don't understand about guilt and shame. They think they do, but they don't understand. She tells a great story in Daring Greatly, and that's based on a Theodore Roosevelt speech where she got the book. And it's basically, if you're not a man in the arena fighting the same fight as I am on a daily basis, I don't really care for your feedback. I don't give a damn crap what you say. If you're here with me every day in the same, fighting the same fight I am, then I absolutely do care what you say. She speaks of vulnerability this way. That's what made her famous. She's a professor in Houston. And so she went to do a TED Talk, I think, or some speech, and it was going to be interpreted by American Sign Language. And so they came and asked her, what kind of words are you going to use a lot in this speech so that we can be prepared for them? And she said, well, I'm probably going to talk about vulnerability a lot. And so they said, oh, vulnerability. Weak in the knees. I don't know how you were raised, But I was raised that being vulnerable was a sign of weakness. That's how I was raised in Paola, Kansas in the 1950s. And she looked at them, she goes, oh no, this will never work. And she kind of explained to them what she was about, and they came back a few minutes later, and they said, we have another sign to see if this will work for you. Vulnerability. And they went, I think if anything has changed my teaching in the last couple of years, and my directing specifically, it's been that book. Because she defines guilt and shame so well. And it's made me look at all the classic scenes, especially, I'm looking at thinking Glass Menagerie, Amanda Wingfield, in her telephone speech, the AR speech, and she's talking about, having to model the brassieres and that kind of stuff, that speech. She says that guilt is, I've done something bad. Shame is, I am bad. Guilt, I've done something bad. Shame, I am bad. Kids don't get that. But when you talk to them about it, I talk to them about it not because I want to be their therapist, because I'm not. I'm not trained with that, don't want to be, and don't intend for this to be. I want them to look at it from the point of view of how they can use it in their acting, and how I can use it as a director, and how you can use it as a director, because it makes you approach scripts differently. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of it because I've seen it happen in my own work. And I will tell you that last year my kids did a play by Sarah Rule called Eurydice. They took first place in duet with it. And that is exactly the technique I used with those two kids. It absolutely revolutionized the way that I approach a script. Because we're all motivated by guilt and shame. And I'm not asking them, if you read the book, you're adults, you can figure that out for yourself and figure out, in your own life what that means to you. But I'm asking them to look at it from the outside as what makes the characters tick. What is their primal gut instinct? What makes them change or want to change? Because it's when a character, you want to select that part of the scene in which the character has nowhere else to go. They are back from the corner, they have nowhere else to go. And they have given up the hope that their past is going to be any different. They've given up their hope that their past is going to be any different. I'm talking about the character's past. In a play. Because characters tend to live in the past. We do too sometimes. Characters tend to live in the future. We do too sometimes. Art, life. About that. Anyway, they will not look for those things in scripts if I don't mention that. That's part of what teaching is. And so the minute we start to look at scripts, I say, okay, so where is this character's vulnerability? So now vulnerability doesn't mean it means to them. And it will change the direction by which you approach a script. I'm telling you, it works. I've seen it, I've seen it, I've seen it, I've witnessed it. Kids give me feedback all the time. I have to laugh because they haven't read the damn book either. They just know what I've told them about it. And they go, Mr. Brown, I was really vulnerable this weekend. And I say, well, good for you, Jason. Congratulations. I'll alert the media. You know, and they're really, but, you know, they do on occasion make parallel connections to their own families, their own lives, and I don't really talk to them about that. That's really their own business. I'm not, like I said, in this for the therapeutic angle, which is why she wrote the book. I'm interested from a artistic angle of how this motivates me as a director to look at characters in a play or a scene so I can find them at their lowest point, because that's the arc of the play. And when you find that moment in the play, if there is that moment, and sometimes there isn't, and you go, no, not this play. But when there is, I'm telling you, the hair on the back of my head stands up. And I go, thank you, Jesus. There it is. And kids during the rehearsal process now for plays that we do, they'll go, Mr. Brown, I don't believe those two actors are being present. Hence the Patsy Road quote. Mr. Brown, they're not being present. Their focus is elsewhere. Go, very good. Very good. Excellent. Mr. Brown, I don't think they understand about guilt and shame. So they're starting to catch on, and this has just been within the last 18 months that I've really been teaching this part to them, because I have to be really careful, and I would caution you to do the same. You're not a therapist. This is not to be used as a therapeutic tool. It's only to help them as actors understand what makes a character tick.
How
So-
do you get, like, your beginning kids to play vulnerability, to, like, commit to that? Like, mine will all say, oh, I want to do the funny ones. I don't want to do dramatic literature.
Mine say that too, but I say, when you teach the class, you can do what you want, but now I'm teaching the class, and I haven't retired yet, so you're gonna be doing what I want, and this would be it. And if a kid has done a comedy and continues to do comedy, I say, I learned from my acting teacher a long time ago. I have a natural sense of humor, and so I was always casting comedies. I know you find that hard to believe. So, Marcia Grund, I'll never forget her, KU, she said, Max, I'm sorry. No comedy for a full year. She wouldn't let me do any comedies. She made me do, you know what she made me do for a year? I did 3 plays, and they were all by Eugene O'Neill. Talk about needing therapy. But, I have this, that was the best thing. Because it suddenly improved my range as an actor. And that's why, what I tell them, I tell kids that story, because I want them to understand that when I give them something different from what they really want or really like, that I'm expanding their range as an actor so that they can continue to grow and widen their perceptions. And interestingly enough, become more vulnerable in their work by taking risks. They have to take risks in order to be vulnerable. And if you don't take risks, then you can't get to vulnerability. So, some parents have shared to me some interesting dinner conversations they've had with their kids, but it's all been good. It's all been good. But I just wanted to share that with you because I felt like it has really changed the way I really look at place groups now. And how stupid I was to not put that together before now. But if you go back through some of the classic plays of Tennessee Williams, Lily and Helmet, even Eugene O'Neill, and you look at some of Mary Tyrone's speeches from Long Day's Journey to Night, there are signs when she's shooting up the drugs and losing touch with reality, and the stage direction says a fog whistle is heard in the distance. Big symbolism there. I mean, you just can see that. And one of your question earlier was, how do you teach kids that? Well, the way I teach kids is that because kids to me have diarrhea of the mouth when it comes to saying lines. They want to say every line they've got as fast as humanly possible. And so my kids, I wish I could tell you that they remember everything I say, but I have to, it's like any teacher. You just keep reminding them, and then the more you remind them, the more they get it over the course of the years. And so by the time they're seniors, they've heard it enough and they've learned it. And you have them live in a lot of silence, because kids are afraid of silence. I love silence in drama. I like silence in my life, we all do, but I'm talking about kids who aren't afraid to explore the moment between one word and the next word. I have kids divide up a script into motivational units that are based on characters' entrances and exits, change of power, change of mood, those things with change of subject, those things which Stanislavski taught us are how to beat out or measure a script and divide it. And I had a director at KU, Ron Willis, who I was in a play of his, and he had me put a beat change, a unit change, in a two-letter word. And the word was O-H. And he had me put that change between the O and the H. And I'm going. But he worked with me an hour to get it. Because it was a revelatory moment for this character at that moment in the play, and he wanted it. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he was absolutely right. And so I tell kids that story because they need to know that they can be incrementally that minuscule, that the thought that happens. I tell you a story of The Doll's House. There's a production, Janet McTeer won a Tony Award for it 5-7 years ago, Best Actress. And there's a moment toward the end of the play, if you know Doll's House, do you know the play, Doll's House, Ibsen? That Nora has to decide if she's going to stay or not. Torvald, her husband, she's paid money, she's borrowed money, paid for him to become well. He was sick, paid for him to become well. He comes back. He's, they're fairly well off. She has taken care of the kids while he's been away, and they live a nice, lavish lifestyle. And he comes back and starts taking everything away from her. Why are you spending all my money? Yada, 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 typical man. So he threatens her. And at the end of the play, he says, look, my way or the highway. And she has to decide. She has 2 kids, 2 young children. And the way the director staged it was Nora is standing upstage right with the the door to the house directly behind her to leave in the middle of a snowstorm. And there's a double door to her stage left where her 2 children are sleeping. Torvald, her husband, is downstage right at his desk, thinking he's all powerful and that, and he lays it on the line, my way or the highway. And I remember Janet McTeer, and I know this play. I come in knowing this play. There was, and I looked down at my watch. After about a minute, I looked down at my watch and just kept looking back. There was 5 minutes total silence on that stage. I was on the edge of my seat, and I know what happens.
Yeah.
But I was watching her. I never took my eyes off her, and I saw her look at her husband with disgust. Look at where her children were behind the door on stage left. And she walked over, and she just kept, you just knew, looking at her face, what she was thinking. And then, after 5 minutes of silence, and people are just on the edge of their seat, it was so uncomfortable, as you can imagine, you think. And it was clear nobody had forgotten their lines, because Torvald is raising himself up. She walks over to a little sofa table behind the couch, and she takes her purse and dumps out everything that's in it and throws it on the couch. Walks over to the door where her children are and touches the door. And walks up to the door and walks out into the cold and never looks back. I'm telling you, my nipples were standing straight up. I was excited beyond belief. Don't show this. Anyway, I'm telling you, I couldn't have been more excited at a theatrical moment. What a bold choice that was. And that's what I want kids to do in their acting work for me, in scene work, in DI, HI. Bold choices. Backed into a corner, bold choices. You know, you can sit at home and be nice to each other for free. But when you, by God, go to a play, and you're paying a lot of money for it, I want to see some by God fight.
Max, have you seen All Is Lost with Robert Redford?
Mm-hmm.
I use clips from that to show kids that how impactful the silence can be.
Mhm.
Because that movie, I think he maybe says 12 words the entire 2 hours. And he's the only person in it. And that really, I mean, that kind of helps them.
Yeah, there's, I use several, there's several great videos I love to use that show that too. I use a clip from, several clips actually, from The Moon for the Misbegotten. Colleen Dewhurst and Jason Robards, about 1971 or 72. And there's a scene when he is laying in her arms on the front porch and talks about his mother's death. Man. And just watching that scene, kids don't even know the play, but just, I set it up for them, but seeing that scene, they're weeping at the end of that scene. And you can get that whole play, Broadway videos. It's a early 1970 recording. Colleen Moon for the Misbegotten. It's part of the trilogy after a long day's journey. And, oh, powerful. The whole play is powerful, but that particular moment, been incredible. Incredible. So, again, it's picking those backed in a corner moments, arc of the play that speak, I think, to the kids, certainly, and make them excited about the work. But also, I think if you find those moments, they are the most interesting then when you get adjudicated. And where else better to do that, to teach them about auditioning skills, than at a forensics tournament, where they get 3 rounds of auditioning every day. 3 rounds every day, every Saturday. I love that part. I am humbled by the people I've been in workshops with and who have taught me over the years. And thank God I paid attention some of the times too. I did a workshop this last session that some of you were in, but some of you were not. And I wanted to share this with you too, because I think it's insightful and I think it's helpful, and I would like to share it with you as well. So I was wondering if you would help, and you would help again. It's the listening exercise. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here if it hasn't gone down. What is come across my plate? We've always been worried as teachers that we only hear, kids only hear about 20% of what's said to them by us. But I went to a workshop recently in Cincinnati where, led by a professor from CCM who posited that audiences only are picking up 7% of what they understand about play from the dialogue. And that everything else that they understand is either visual, and they said visual is usually about 20%, but the rest, what's that, 73%, is tone of voice. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. So, I'm going to share 2 quick things before this workshop is over. Hopefully I can bring this up, and I'll show you what I mean.